Okay, Tamara. So first of all, so this show is going to be called Think Tank. And the idea behind Think Tank is to interview the top professionals in the industry. And I'm so honored to have you, Tamara Rossie-Molina, from First American Home Warranty, as our very first guest speaker on this. And, the idea behind Think Tank is to all come together as industry professionals to help each other out as a community at a time that there's some serious safeguards that are put into place with this whole COVID-19 concern that we have. So business is changing, real estate is changing, home warranties are changing, and we all have to adapt to the time right now to continue keeping our economy moving, to also put out the facts. And that's really the goal of this, is hear a little bit about your story, hear how you've been successful over all these years. One of my very first people I consider as a part of the team that I was able to put together starting back in 2004, 22 years old, new in the business, second generation. And you have not aged a day since the first time that we've met. And I know you've had 30 plus years experience in the field. Is that correct?
Yes. Started really in the industry in 1987. And first of all, I'm very honored that I'm the first person that you chose to do this with. And I love the think tank concept. And yeah, real estate is changing, but for the moment. And I think, maybe we'll get back to the norm here coming up, hopefully, more quickly rather than, later on down the line. So, but thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, it's an honor, and I know we are going to have a great session right now. And some of the things we're going to talk about is, one is, as I mentioned, hear your story, hear how you got into the business, how you've been able to build a business over this time, what you've done to be successful. And I think that's not only important for those that are possibly considering a career in the field, but also for real estate agents, because we all work with people. We are a service-based industry. And a lot of this, as we talked about yesterday, is we do sell ourselves in terms of what we offer, the peace of mind that we offer by working with true professionals in the industry. So we'll start with that. And then second, go into what are some of the changes that are happening, some of the changes that First American is taking to still be able to serve your clients, your customers, also protect the safety of your employees. So we'll talk about some of those changes. And then finally, if you're good with it, we'll wrap up with discussing what a home warranty is, right? And sometimes we think we could start with that, but I actually think there's some great details. And whether you've been in this business for, 10, 15, 20, 30 plus years, there's always new information that I was always honored to have you speak at our office meetings and share with us the latest and greatest. And more importantly, how do we protect our clients and their best interest, right? So how do we write an offer and know that we are getting the absolute best coverage, and what separates you from just a homeowner's insurance policy, right? What's the difference between a home warranty and a home insurance? So a lot of great information. I know this is going to be quite a bit, but we will, we're going to just keep it with facts as we talked about, not hearsay or opinions, but truly knowing what's happening in the industry right now. So I know that was quite a bit of an intro, but I wanted to give a brief overview of what we'll be covering. And I guess just to start with, on a personal level, I know I'm excited today. I was able to stand in line at Costco at 7 a.m. this morning, got in and got toilet paper. So I am stoked. So I am so stoked. Right. So stoked. I don't know what's better. We closed an escrow yesterday, which was awesome for our clients. I'm telling you, it's about the same right now with scoring on toilet paper versus closing an escrow. It's pretty equal, which sounds pretty crazy because, we could potentially have a rough 6 to 8 weeks from what I'm hearing, from the economist and so forth. So again, the real estate is changing. We still have to serve our clients. People need to buy homes. People also need to make sure that if they have a leak or something happens inside their home that they just moved into, that they're not stuck on their own, right? So those are the things that we want to share. So would you like sharing with your story, just kind of how you got into home warranty business and
Absolutely.
built the relationships and the things that you've done?
Yes. So thank you. I started out, I graduated high school, did my high school jobs, worked in a men's clothing store, so did retail, did a gold and silver exchange kind of coin shop, got some great experience there. And then a friend of mine was selling home warranty, and she said, "Hey, you want to come and sell home warranty? They're looking for people."
Right.
And this was 87, and I said, sure, why not? I wasn't, I was kind of looking for a career, but I had, graduated from college, had a business degree, but nothing, nothing really in my head that said, oh, screamed, I want to sell home warranty. So I
Right.
kind of did a job, and I was pretty young, and I think with the way that that company was structured, the territories were huge. So in the way that I've found out now that I like to work, there was not there were too many clients, too many cities to see. And by the time I got back around, it was 3 or 4 weeks, people who I had met didn't realize who I was anymore. And it just wasn't a good fit with the territory. Looking back, I mean, in that time I had no idea. But
Right.
anyway, I ended up getting married, having my son, and then a new startup company, home warranty company, who is no longer around. They approached me, and I started in the North San Fernando Valley, and really built a following there with a territory that was manageable in my style of how I want to do business. And my style of wanting to do business is just a relationship business.
Right.
Uh, you know,
Not a hard pressure
building a relationship.
sales. Right.
No, it's, wanting to know who you're dealing with and wanting people to trust you and say, hey, I realize that people are giving me their clients and their buyers and their homeowners for a year at least, to kind of get them through the hurdles of home warranty, which, we're covering water heaters and slab leaks and things that are causing secondary damage in a house, and,
Right.
little things like pest control, spraying for ants. So I realize that people want to have trust in who they're dealing with, because it's hard in the home warranty industry just calling an 800 number.
Right.
You can call and talk to somebody, and the calls get dispatched, and that's great. But
Mhm.
there is some handholding that needs to happen. And so the way that I have always built my business is just a one-on-one relationship. And
Right.
you need to see people on a frequent basis, and being face to face with them. When I first started, social media wasn't a thing. I mean, that was
Right.
ages ago. So we didn't even have cell phones. I'm dating myself, but it's the way that I like to build my business, is that relationship building. So then I was with this company, and then First American came knocking at the door and said, hey, we'd like you to join the team. And so I started in the North San Fernando Valley with them.
Wow.
And with First American ever since. I appreciate the strength of the company and the size and what they've done for us as far as coverage and service. So I think that, in that, just the relationship building and seeing people and talking to them and finding out what's going on in their life.
Mhm.
And when you build relationships with people and see them, on a consistent basis, which I also think is huge.
Right.
Be consistent. You got to be consistent and persistent. You're just, there when people need you.
Right.
So that's kind of my story. I've been with First American now for, I don't know, 29 years.
Wow, that's amazing and unbelievable, especially through, I mean, what's happened in those last 29 years, with market crashes, with just everything, dot com boom, I mean, bust, and every about 9/11, everything we've been through. So from your experience, from what you've seen, have you ever seen anything like this, what we're experiencing right now?
This is a little different, but I will compare it, and it's not the same, but I went through the 1994 earthquake in
Right.
Northridge,
Oh, right.
and clients were in Northridge, and I thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be 6, 8, 9 months of nothing.
Right.
But wow, within a month, things were up and running again. So
Awesome.
look at what we've gone through and the challenges in the market that we've seen. Yeah, we haven't seen anything quite like this, but I think with interest rates where they are, um, with the economy where,
We just lost you.
but
There you go. We got you back. Yep.
so I think that, we'll come back,
Yeah.
and I think you be ready. And I think contact your clients and you keep face to face with them,
Right.
because when it does come back, it will come screaming back, and you
Oh, yeah.
need to be prepared, and you can't have wasted this time thinking, oh, what am I going to do, and worry about it. You just need to stay in touch with your clients and stay in touch with the market and give your clients information as you hear it.
Correct.
So that's huge. And then when the market does come back and things get to be a little more normal, you step right back in, and you didn't lose any steam.
Right.
That's
No, I agree with you 100%. My feeling is the market was white hot. I mean, it was booming since January 1st, really, this year. It slowed down towards the end of last year, picked right back up after the first, and it was the busiest I've been in the last 16 years. So I
Yes.
was really excited to see how this year was going to turn out. Luckily, we created quite a bit of momentum early on before this happened. So still serving some clients. We actually just a client was able to close yesterday, which was great. Working on another one that hopefully will be closing on Friday, and another one that's a little bit further out, but they're a VA buyer, which is one of the most secure buyers that you could be working with right now, just in terms of job security. And I think that's really the biggest concern that I have right now is job security. Right, some of the predictions of what they're talking about, and it's people start going to the deep end, doom and gloom, and this is going to last 6 months to a year, which I think it's prudent to be prepared for that. I think it's prudent to make sure that we're doing exactly what we're doing right here, staying connected, getting the information from the source, from the industry experts like yourself, and getting the facts. The fact that you still are working, that you're considered an essential business, even with the stay-at-home order, that business is still happening right now, that transactions are still taking place, that people need to live in a home. They need to buy and sell real estate. Some are hard deadlines that military transferring, when they have PCS orders, it's a definite date. Now, even though the gentleman that I'm representing right now was told for some time that he couldn't travel more than 50 miles from the base without getting permission from his supervising officer. That's concerning, when your family's across the country. So, but those things are already improving. Interest rates are improving. They were great at 18-year low interest rates, went up, right? Jumped up pretty high, almost 2 full points through all the scare of what was happening when it initially happened. Now it's starting to come back down. Stock market has been, hit hard, and we're seeing little bounce backs ups. And then, again, there's still a lot of uncertainty. But typically, as you mentioned, when rates are low, when the economy is doing well, which it was doing very well before this happened, as well as when the stock market actually comes down, that's typically when more eyes are on real estate. I heard something from another professional in the industry she's a leader and very, very known, great reputation. She was saying, one of the things she heard from another top agent in the industry was everybody's at home realizing that they want a bigger house. They're realizing my house is not big enough. I'm here every single day right now. So I do agree with you and believe that once things kind of normalize a little bit, we get past this scare, and they tell us about the cure, that's out there, and we jump on this and really just start getting back to business as usual again. I think it's going to take off. It was already screaming hot right beforehand. So I know there's a lot of eyes on the market. We have some limitations. Open houses aren't allowed right now. Face-to-face contact or showings aren't allowed. It's a strong order, and people are trying to fight that and say that realtors are an essential job or business because we provide shelter. We are a part of the process that makes sure that homes are protected, and that people can make their moves. So, we'll see. It'll be very interesting, but staying on top of it, reading, the Inman news every single day, hearing what the top CEOs are doing. And just while I'm on my soapbox right now, if you don't mind, Tamara, this is about you. It's not about what I want to share, but I want to give some of these. Zillow has pulled out as an iBuyer. So the whole internet buyer where they were buying properties, Zillow's pulled out, Redfin's pulled out, and there's a third one. I can't remember which company it is. I think I got it written down here somewhere, Open Door. So Zillow just suspended in all 28, I think they're in 28 different regions. Every single region, they stopped purchasing these homes. Now what Zillow and one of the other two companies has said is the reason they're doing it is for safety and health concerns. So that is their justification for not doing these right now. One of them, I think, was a little bit more honest, which I won't say which one it was, but they said that because of the unpredictability of valuing homes, they don't feel comfortable purchasing these properties. So just really interesting, because that was one of the big fears and concerns from a lot of real estate agents, that I've spoken to, that look, the real estate industry with technology is changing. Now I feel technology is more important right now, But as soon as things start shifting the way that it's shifting, it makes it even more important that you rely on an industry expert. And we know how complicated real estate is across the country, but definitely in California with all the litigation that's involved, all the liability that's involved. So do you really just want to click on a home and say, I'm going to buy that property? How do you do your due diligence? How do you inspect that home? How do you know exactly what you're getting? How do you use the experience that the agent brings in their relationships to negotiate on your behalf and help secure and protect you? And that's why we have a fiduciary duty to look out for your financial best interest. So all things that make the idea of iBuyer a little scary, but the only way that you make that work is if you guarantee to purchase something below market value, which is disclaimed everywhere that you look at that. So if you're truly trying to get every penny for the sale, the hard-earned equity that you have in your home, which at a time like this, that money is critical because we know how many people are living paycheck to paycheck right now. And that's why so many people are excited about hearing about some money coming, from the government to help out at these times, because it's really scary. And sad to say, in my profession, the real estate industry, many of us do not have 6+ months reserve put aside. So we need to be better as an industry. And this is a big wake-up call for many different things to make sure that we, plan, we prepare, we have enough toilet paper, right? That we have enough of the essentials in stock. So if there is a day that an earthquake or something does hit, right, that we're prepared and we're going to be okay. And we can feed our families and take care of them. So as scary and concerning this is, I feel so blessed that this is happening right now because it's helping me cherish the things that I was taking for granted. Most importantly, my family, my wife, our children, and the time that we get together right now. We're still working. I feel like I've been working harder since the stay-at-home order.
Me too.
And maybe some of that is just the nights, helping out more than I was before. Late at night, and so I'm still working on getting my sleep schedule back on track, but I'm enjoying the time that I get to spend with our kids and teach them the things that we've worked so hard to learn. And this is huge for their future, to lay the right foundation, to not freak them out about what's going to happen, but help them understand. And that's why we call this think tank, right? How to think, because that's where it all starts. It all starts with a thought. And that thought leads to an emotion, and that emotion, depending on how you feel, leads to an action. And that action is going to give you certain results, right? So based on what you're thinking, what are we watching? Are we watching the news? Are we watching doom is gloom? Are we reading Think and Grow Rich? Are we reading the Bible? Are we reading things that are helping us think clearly and think out of abundance and out of love and out of caring for others? And that's also another beautiful thing that I've been hearing is, don't the neighbors seem so much friendlier? As we're supposed to stay inside, but when we do that walk around the block, people are waving to each other. Hey, do you got enough milk? Do you have enough toilet paper? It is truly awesome to see that, and I hope that stays. I hope it doesn't get back to. I feel like we kind of went back 20 years in certain ways, in a good way. I've represented clients that they just tell me it's just too busy right now. Things happen too fast, and it's just we're getting back to enjoying that family at home. So sorry to go off on my soapbox, but I just wanted to share some of those thoughts and feelings. And just curious, do you share any of those same?
Well, yes. And I think that we will all be sorry if we look back, a month or 2 months from now or 3 months from now and think, I spent the whole time worrying and didn't enjoy the family and didn't enjoy the things and work the ways that I can work.
Right.
If we waste all this time in worry,
Right.
you will have missed those month or two that you could have spent time with the kids and done some, wonderful things, although it's in the house or in the yard. But,
Right.
we don't want to look back and say, oh my gosh, I wasted that time,
Right.
things are coming back and, I'm getting back to work, but what did I do with that time? I think that's really important. And we can all look at the glass that's half full of water. Well, it's either half full or half empty, and it really depends on how you look at it. And I'm choosing to look at it as half full. Things will come back. You got to be positive. I'm praying. I'm, doing some things that really keep my mind in a better place than if I watch the news all day. So
Absolutely.
I agree
And
with you.
Yes, and I do have a list to help with everybody who is working from home because this is a big change for many of us, right? And it's just it's got a 15-point list of what to do to help keep a strong mindset, certain activities, things to focus on, helping out others. It's great. Working out, watching the calories that you drink, that slow you down, including alcohol, right? You're
Yes.
drinking alcohol every night right now just because you don't have to wake up early to go to work. I can honestly say, I think I've had one beer in the last couple weeks. And part of it, I'm just too tired to even think about it. And at one dinner, Danielle had a beer there that had a couple sips. I was like, this isn't even enjoyable right now. I was like, what did I say? I think I wanted my milk. I said, milk sounds so much better. And now it being a commodity, it's like, oh, I've never enjoyed milk as much as I do. And you can ask my parents, ask my mom, she knows. I have
Yes.
loved milk since I was a little kid. And
Yes.
because we were on powdered milk, government cheese. And
Oh, yes.
yeah, it's, remember, Navy household, family of
Right.
6. My dad was enlisted. We always had either free lunch or reduced lunch. We were under the poverty limit. And,
Yes.
and I'm not saying it for any type of sympathy. It's just understanding, remembering. I knew
Yes.
when my mom was mixing the powdered milk with the regular milk.
Yes.
And I'm like, Mom, I'm like, we can't have this. We need
Yeah.
the regular milk. I said, I know we get powder milk. I said, I need that real milk from the cow. I said, that's the milk that I'm looking for here.
That's my
So,
standard.
oh no, and it's still to this day, milk. You can ask Danielle. Milk is my gold still, and I don't care what all those Netflix documentaries say about dairy and
Yes.
that whole thing. I'm still gonna enjoy my milk. Milk does the body good. I'll bring that commercial back.
That's right.
I just need to work on the body part. But
Yeah.
so getting back to it. So you had mentioned that First American has made some changes, right? What are some of those changes that they've made to protect the safety of everybody?
Okay, so contractors are deemed essential, as you mentioned before. So when we have people calling in because they've got a massive leak underneath a sink or a slab leak, I have one this morning. We are absolutely placing claims as usual. Contractors are going out as usual. I find with some of my homeowners now, if it's not essential, if they just have a drippy faucet, they're
Right,
going to hang until this is calmed down a little bit. So they don't want people in their house. I have a guy with an oven who's, the oven isn't working, but he called me and said, listen, even though our part is in and we can install it, he does not want it installed. So there are people in that mindset. And,
right,
we have also told our contractors, if you're sick or your family member's sick or you've got somebody who is exposed, then you
right,
stand down, don't go to a house.
right.
And expect the same thing from a homeowner.
Hmm.
If they've been sick or they've got a family member who's sick, especially with this virus, you
Right.
know, we're not going into the house. So we're trying to keep everybody separated that way. But if there is an emergency and people are well and we need to place a claim, we do that and the contractor goes out. So I am available if there's any delay. So we're very careful with our call centers too. And
Uh-huh.
if people are sick there, then, I mean, something we have done is we've moved 85% of our workforce home.
Right.
So we have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on laptops to
Wow.
get people out of the office and staying home. So
And
we do
still
want to,
still employed.
yeah. So, as reps, I mean, we were home as of what, this is the second or third week. So we've been home for a while, but when it got to the point it got to where we needed to send employees home, that's what we did. So people are working out of their houses. So
Right.
we've had a couple of activity type issues. My service partner was down for about a half a day, but we've rebounded from that. We're all in communication and happy to help homeowners because again, you got a slab leak and you can't afford to let that go. So, and while we're talking about that, you're talking about the difference between home warranty and homeowners
Right.
insurance. So
Mm,
you have a
right on
slab
that.
leak, the water's coming up.
Right.
We cover the actual pipe underneath the slab.
Hmm.
Homeowners insurance comes in and covers the secondary damage. So they will
Uh-huh.
take that hardwood floor that you need to replace because of this slab leak.
Right.
So that's the difference, but we'll take care of the pipe or a certain amount of that pipe
Right.
leak.
You
Yes.
you also mentioned, I remember from previous meetings that when you do file a home insurance claim, that there's record for that. It's just something that it could also be some type of issue, as you go to sell the home. Now, we always advise our clients any type of issue that you disclose that material fact
Oh,
to your
yes.
clients. But again, some things happen and they happened so long ago that it doesn't always come up in memory. But this is something that, there is a difference. Can you explain the difference with that?
Well, yeah, I would think with your homeowner's insurance, I mean,
Mhm.
home warranty, we have a deductible of 75 bucks. Well, that's, not a ton of money.
Right.
Home insurance, you could have 1,000 or 2,000 or $5,000 deductible.
Mine's 1,000, right?
When
1,000.
you've got a massive slab leak and you've got the hardwood floors ruined and you've got to take out the drywall,
Right.
up a foot, you're going to be spending a ton of money. So it's worth knowing what your deductible is under homeowners insurance and whether you need to place that claim. If
Okay.
you had $1,000 deductible and what you're going to spend is about, $1,500 or $2,500 fixing it, don't bother placing that homeowners insurance claim.
Right.
You put that on your record. You're not going to spend a $5,000 deductible when you could have had it fixed for 2,500. So just be aware in your homeowner's insurance and what that deductible is and what's best for you to do.
Right. That's a great way to explain it. And I guess the scenario that I shared with you is, we actually, so we had a backup in our toilet, and it was between the toilet and the shower, and water was backing up and some dark muck of whatever it was called. We had 4 or 5 different plumbers come out because I didn't have my home warranty in place. I apologize, Tamara, but we will get on top of that. But it was a good lesson for me to see of the different plumbers, the different estimates, the different quotes of what they were given. Some said they had to drill under the slab. Others said that the American Leak Detection was actually the company who was able to pinpoint it and see that the piping actually went out. So if I listened to any of the earlier plumbers, then we would have started breaking ground and found out that we didn't need to break ground. So it's also making sure you get to the right source of that. And luckily, I have some connections through working in real estate for this time of knowing, just kind of when not to just trust the first thing that I'm hearing up front. And it may be just somebody trying to get a job, right? Where I know when I called the homeowners insurance, they said, well, you have $1,000 deductible, and most of the quotes were like $900. So it's like, okay, I'm not going to file a claim. It's still not even covered, right? And then that's just to start breaking ground, where if I would have had a home warranty, I could have at least had the leak detection service to find out where the leak was before breaking ground and starting to spend money that you start digging yourself into a hole. And again, I've been in the business for 16 years. What's, the average first time home buyer who moves into the property, if they don't have a home warranty coverage and they don't have a source, and that's something that you've done an excellent job over, is, I mean, the very first person that I've worked with, and you stayed a part of the team because I knew I could count on you. And it wasn't always black and white with you. It wasn't always just, okay, this is included, this is excluded. And we'll talk about some of those things, right? I would call
Yeah.
you up and you would find out, you know what? Yes, it's excluded, but you need help right now. So I'm going to see what we can do. And then you would find some help. No matter how big or small it was still that extra effort. It was always going the extra mile. One of the things Napoleon Hill talks about, right, is you don't just do, a lot of people have the attitude, well, that's above my pay grade. I'm only going to work as hard as what I'm getting paid. That's never been your approach. Your approach has always been, more of, okay, how are things going? Is everything resolved? Did it happen fast enough? Did you get everything done? And if they couldn't fix it, then let's get a replacement for it. Okay. And it was a quality replacement, not just some cheap replacement. It was a quality replacement to the best of your ability, and always delivering above and beyond. So that's huge. It's
Thank you.
huge in our business. And I just definitely had to share that with you. So,
Thank,
yeah, go ahead.
thank you.
And
I think that's the bottom line. We're not perfect. First American, of course. I'm not perfect, but
right,
we try to help. And yeah, not everything is black and white. The contract, says this, and that's great, but not everything's black and white. There are a lot of gray areas in there that aren't even listed in the contract. And how do
right.
we get help for a homeowner? And even if it's, truly a non-covered item,
Uh-huh.
very clearly because it's outside the main foundation or whatever, we can get that service fee back or whatever. So the homeowner doesn't feel like they're out, anything monetarily. I mean,
Right,
there are ways to think outside the box and try and get help, when it's needed, which, is quite often because there are gray areas or there are things that happen right after the close of escrow. I mean, the biggest thing for me is, when we close escrow and actually the tent goes on, if you're going to do the termite or whatever, the tent goes on the house,
right,
sell, cut the services, and the tent goes on, escrow closes, the buyer moves in, the gas company goes out to turn on the pilot on the heater, and they red tag it.
Right.
And say, hey, this thing, has a cracked heat exchanger, which, will kill you. It's carbon monoxide. So
Right.
they red tag the heater, shut it down. Well, the coverage began the day that escrow closed. We're getting a heating claim the day after escrow closed.
Uh-huh.
Of course, First American says, any home warranty would say, hey, this thing is pre-existing.
Right.
But guess what? It's not. This happens so often. So we go back to the inspection report, which I will do if that inspection report helps us. And
Right.
by the way, I don't know what your thought is, but always have an inspection done because it helps us.
Absolutely.
So if you have the heater that's, on the inspection, the contractor or the inspector says, listen, this heater is 40 years old. It's way past its life expectancy, but it is functioning.
Right.
That's all you need to overturn that denial.
That's
And
awesome.
I use a home inspection all day long to overturn denials if legitimately that thing was working.
Right.
And I'm telling you, the 40-year-old heaters are made much better than the ones they put in today.
Right.
So I would take that 35, 40-year-old heater if you're a buyer
Right.
and you're before you close escrow. Those things, could go another 5-10 years. I mean, they were animals.
Right.
That's put in today, not so much. So yeah, I will take an inspection report, we'll overturn that denial, but you need to have somebody in your corner who will advocate that and say, hey, listen, just get me your home inspection and we'll figure it out.
I love
So,
how you said that. Somebody in your corner, it's about building the right team of professionals. It's who you associate with, right? Making sure you're working with like-minded, positive people who are problem solvers, not
yes.
problem makers, right? And we got plenty of those. I remember when managing the last office that you've helped many of our agents in that office. It was with a competitor company, and I just remember how much they were pushing on the pre-existing issue and denying the claim. And it would come up to my attention. I said, look, that's why you got to give Tamara a call. I said, that's the one thing that I can't guarantee every situation, especially if it's obvious it's pre-existing, right? You can see so much evidence. There's
Right.
sometimes your hands are tied, right? But if there is a chance and there is a way, I've seen you dig deeper, right? And that home inspection that you brought up, and I want to reemphasize that. We always recommend that a buyer does a home inspection, and that is, it's not just for a date and time stamp by a professional inspector who goes through and evaluates the property so that we are again are doing our due diligence and knowing what we're getting. But it's also a document for you to have a date and a timestamp so that you can see, okay, it was working on this date prior to close of escrow, not to the very day of close of escrow, but during that due diligence period, you have a date and timestamp. And that's actually ammo for you to help build a case to try to help get something overturned, even though it was first denied based on the black and white lettering of what's written in the policy. So if you're comfortable with it, I'd like to pull up, I'm going to share the First American Home Warranty policy with some of it just to give our audience an idea of what the rate range goes for. And then if you can also show just some of the benefits as we're writing offers, right? And we represent our clients. What are some new things that I know you shared with me? I was like, wow, I didn't know about that. I didn't realize that that was that great of an add-on for $100 additional. But the home warranty is very reasonably priced. So I'm going to open that right now, see if this works. Can you see it on the screen?
Yes, look at that.
Okay. And
Love
then I'm
it.
going to try to open it up. Hopefully the writing, let's see if I can get it away from the
And
two-page view.
so you all know, this is the new brochure that came out the end of December, into January of this year. And it's a brochure with so much information in it now. And the picture that you see of the house, kind of gives the buyers a good idea about what's covered. It's a visual. And I love the way it's written and some of the things and some of the people or companies that we have paired with. So when you get back to your offices, I have, brochures there, the physical brochures, but I can also email you a PDF of the new one.
Awesome.
It's very user-friendly, so much information. And I would always go back to that back page, which is page 14. If you're looking at costs and the new options, it explains them in the brochure in entirety. But on that last page, I think it's page 14, it will actually give you a graph, which I think for me is visual. I love it. It's right there. So perfect. Thank you, Brandon.
Can you
But
see it okay there?
yes, I can.
Awesome.
So the basic plan, and I know, and some of my territory does not have air conditioning or as much of it, getting more and more now these days. But the basic plan is the far left column, and you see with those dots, that's everything that's covered under the basic plan, plus more. But those are the major things, and then you have all the optional coverages below. The middle plan is the basic with air conditioning and the first class upgrade, which we've talked about the first class upgrade for years. It
Right.
covers some stuff if we're replacing big ticket items. The last column adds the washer, dryer, and refrigerator. So these building blocks, all the agents are used to. We've always had it that way. Just to go back a little bit, refrigerator and washer, dryer, those have, sometimes people buy brand new. So if you buy brand new, you've got the manufacturer's warranty, so you don't need that covered. But a lot of times now you're running into the built-in refrigerators. So you might figure that if the washer dryer is being left by the seller also. But the new things are down on the left-hand side where those blocks are that say new. The ones under the yellow at the very bottom, I think, are the biggest ones we have. And just really quickly, the Plumbing Plus covers the lateral line from the house to the street. So
Right.
under the basic plan, we've always covered to clear stoppage and, out to the, as long as you're on a normal sized lot, out to the street. That's under the basic plan. But before, if we hit roots in the line, which is usually why those lines break, we would be out of the claim. But if you get this Plumbing Plus, which is a $100 option, that will cover $1,000 of that lateral line. So that's huge. So if you're walking up to the front door showing your buyer a house and you see a bunch of trees in the yard,
Right.
this should jog your memory and say, hey, that Plumbing Plus might be an option here. The second one that I like is the First Class Plus. And we've always had issues when we're replacing a water heater or an air conditioner. We've had trouble, with not trouble, but we've come across the non-covered costs that are modifications that the contractor calls out that on a water heater could be $300 or $400. Well, with the First Class Plus, it's $1,000 worth of those modifications. And so with a water heater, ideally, it'll just be the $75 service fee when we have to replace a water heater, which hasn't been the case before. So I love the addition of these new options. And so because of all these new options, which if you look at them all, pre-season HVAC tune-up, ornamental fountain, water, reverse osmosis, and, water softener system, all those new ones, there's no way in this RPA that you're going to be writing in every option that you want.
Right.
So suggestion the last, couple of years actually has been buyer to select options in that other blank on the RPA.
Right.
That way you do a little bit of the math beforehand when you're writing your offer. You've seen the big trees in the front yard. You're thinking maybe that heater and AC, although you don't know because you haven't seen the home, the home inspection hasn't been done yet. You haven't made an offer, but you're thinking, if those systems are older, we might want to add another $100 for that, First Class Plus. So you kind of do in your head the math and
Right.
say, okay, and I'm going to write in buyer to select options. And at that point, you can even show your buyer a PDF of this contract and they can pick the coverage, or you can suggest what they might want, but it covers all the bases that way. And then you can spend the amount of money you want if you've asked for it. So
Right.
just another good idea because now we have so many great options. You want to make sure that you utilize those.
Right. Right. And so just also just on the real estate side of it, what I like to add to what you were saying, Tamara, is I would say commonly I typically write somewhere between $400 to $600 for the amount up to, right? And
Yeah.
I can't say that I can recall, at least in the last 2 years, where that's been countered out.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend writing it in every time, just as a general practice. If it does become a countering situation, then you can either decide to do it yourself for your clients, or I mean, the client could potentially pay for themselves, but it is a great practice to have. It's great for liability. It's great to show that you're doing upkeeping your fiduciary duty in terms of protecting your client's best interest, because even
Yes.
in those markets where the sellers aren't fixing a whole lot, right? And which was our previous white hot market where it was as is sales, these home
Yeah.
warranties are critical because
Yeah.
a first time buyer is moving into that property, or any buyers moving into that property, something happens and they're like, wow, I wish, it wasn't disclosed, Now I'm looking at disclosures. Now we got a potential litigation or mediation or arbitration situation that really may have been alleviated if we just would have had a home warranty in place.
Yeah.
So I think it's great practice. On the buying and selling side, and maybe and I just want to sum up, because I know even as long as I've been doing it and I still hear it, I still get confused on some of these different options of really kind of knowing the difference between them. So that being one thing which you've done a good job at differentiating, maybe just a little bit more on when you said well, let's say roof leaks, right? Roof
Yes.
has been something that's been big. So I started writing those in as an extra option. What is that covered and how much does that cost?
Okay, so roof coverage is an additional $100. It's $1,000 worth of coverage. The roof has to be in watertight condition at the close of escrow, but frankly, if you're putting roof coverage on, you're thinking maybe it's not. So I don't like the limitation of it. I don't like the fact that when it's the only coverage that we have that's dictated by the weather, pretty
Right.
much. Heating and air conditioning, yes, but not like roof. I mean, you get
Right.
rain, 3 or 4 days of rain, and you get that leak, and people are screaming when they're getting the secondary damage. Well,
Right.
our roofers are getting their own calls from their own clients outside of warranty, and who are they going to service first? I
Right.
mean, I'm realistic. So I don't love it, but the
Right.
fact is that I don't write enough of it, so they really don't have roofers in my territory as much. So you
Mhm.
may get authorization for an outside guy to go out, and you may know somebody who you like.
Okay.
I don't love roof
Well,
coverage.
and that's what I appreciate
Yeah.
about you, is just your just being upfront with that. And I mean, just explain to us. So when it says it's got to be watertight prior to, what fits in that box?
Well, yeah, and in the past, I think we've taken this verbiage out, but I think in the past it said something about you have to do standard maintenance on your roof. Well, what the heck
Okay.
is they're not going to have somebody walk on the tiles?
Right.
So I think we've taken that out, but I don't think it's wonderful coverage.
Okay. I appreciate that, and that's good to know. And I won't spend the $100 on that. We'll spend it on something better. What would be your biggest bang for the buck, if you would call it that?
As far as coverage.
The greatest value. Yeah. If you were to, so say all you really realistically know you can negotiate is an additional $100 on top of the Eagle Premier, right? So 645 Eagle Premier policy. So I add an extra $100. Which one would you add if you had an extra $100? And obviously it changes whether you have a pool or
Yeah,
not, but let's just say no
yeah.
pool, and you could add one. What would that be?
Well, it would depend. I would either do the first class plus or the plumbing plus. But again, the first class plus, if you've got a water heater that's only 2 years old and a heating and air conditioner that's 4 years old,
Right.
then maybe I would look at the front yard and look at the trees and see if there are big trees in the yard for the lateral line.
Okay.
So let me talk about air conditioning really quickly, since I just
Yes,
mentioned heating and air.
please do.
Freon, of course, now is gone.
Right.
So that's up to the end of 2019. So um, the units that were made prior to 2012, 2013 utilize Freon. So even though you're looking at the home inspection and saying, oh, well, that air conditioner is from 2010, it's fairly new, it's only 10 years old, you got to remember that with Freon being gone, there is a possibility that your air conditioning system might have to be replaced. So I'll just tell you really quickly what we do. If it's a refrigerant problem, we go out this summer, it's 105 degrees outside, God
Right.
forbid, and the refrigerant is gone, we will flush out the system and then add an alternative refrigerant that's EPA approved, which is great. I think a lot of times that will work, but there will be some instances where the alternative Freon is not compatible with the air conditioner. And
Right.
under the circumstances, we will actually be replacing the air conditioning system. So we could be looking at a 2010 air conditioner and actually having to do a replacement on it. So I would definitely pick up that first class plus if you've got an air conditioner that's prior, that was built, manufactured prior to 2012, 2013. And I say 2013 because some of the manufacturers had stock and they were allowed to get rid of that stock. So it could be a unit that was manufactured or, delivered in 2013. So just be aware of that. I mean, those are some big things.
And the plumbing plus, I know you mentioned that as well, but what's the big difference between the plumbing plus for an additional $100 and your regular policy?
So the Plumbing Plus is that lateral line. So if it's broken, even if it's
Up to
broken,
1,000.
and also under that Plumbing Plus, it adds another 1,000 on slab leak coverage. So under the
Great.
basic plan, $1,500 on slab leak, it adds another $1,000 to that. So you're looking at $2,500 on a slab leak, which is huge.
That's huge. So City of Ventura, if we're doing sewer lateral inspections, it's probably a good idea to make sure we add that Plumbing Plus.
Yes, yeah, unless, you know, you've done the sewer lateral and it looks fine and there are no trees in the yard, you know.
Right.
I mean, you know, you've got to look at all of that. It requires a little more thinking now than in the past, right?
Right.
Because it used to be basic air in the upgrade and refrigerator, washer, dryer, and you have extra refrigerators. It used to be more, you know, non-thinking. And now I find that we have this additional coverage, and yeah, you need to think about it a little more, you know, to get the best coverage for your buyers.
Well, that's
And like
wonderful.
you're saying, I mean, your buyer is moving in, and I had one last week. I talked to her probably for an hour.
Mhm.
They moved in and it was their last dime, and they've been having some issues with stuff, and thank God they've got a warranty. But it's, you know, you could be moving in and they love the house, but they're really stretched thin. And so a home warranty really helps. And as a seller, you know, you don't want the buyer calling you saying, hey, how come you didn't tell me that dishwasher didn't work? Well, it
Right.
worked fine for the seller. And keep in mind, you know, it could have been an elderly couple moving out that was doing maybe, you know, one load a week on their dishwasher, and you got a family of 5 moving in who's washing dishes all the time. So those appliances get used to the, you know, it's like a car and the driver. The car knows the driver. It's like the
Right.
houses know the owners. You know, and you could have that elderly couple moving out and the family of 5 moving in, and all of a sudden you have plumbing problems
Okay.
because the water load now
Right.
is so much different than it was before.
Right.
And by the way, if you're listing a vacant house, you know, as an agent, please go there, you know, a couple times a week at least and run that water, flush those toilets, you know,
Great.
run all the sinks and the showers, the
Right.
garbage disposal even. All those seals and all those pipes dry out
Mhm.
and the stuff flakes and cracks, and then you've got plumbing issues for, especially on a vacant house and a buyer moving in, because all of a sudden that water is hitting those dry pipes and you're going to have some plumbing issues. So just be really vigilant on that if you're a listing agent.
You sound like you know a few things about house issues and problems and things that can
You think?
take place, huh? Just a couple
Yeah,
things. Just a couple. I guess before, because I have some final questions for you, more industry related from what you're seeing out there. How, you know, well, I guess the first one from the agents that you've seen who've been successful, right? It's not always necessarily the highest producing agents, but maybe with the best reputations, maybe with the most consistency, as you talked about being consistent. What would you say are some common qualities and traits that you've observed from your relationships with these agents?
wow. I think probably it's working and being consistent and showing up. And what do they say? That showing up is half the battle, right? And whether
Right.
it's showing up at your home office, if you can work there comfortably, or if it's showing up at the office, it's showing up and being there and being present and not treating it as a part-time job, because it's not. You know, if you're going to be out there you know, networking with your homeowners, or door knocking, or, you know, obviously when this gets better, but you
Right.
know, calling your clients, whatever your method is,
Right.
you need to be prospecting all the time. And I think the problem is that I see is you're prospecting like crazy, and then you're putting deals into escrow. Well, escrows are tough. And
Mm.
so trying to get them closed, you know, then you're not prospecting. And
Right.
so then, you know, digging yourself out of that hole again and prospect, and put the deals into escrow. And it's the, you know, the hills and the valleys. And, you know, that's tough.
Mm.
So I think if, you know, people can figure out how to keep prospecting while they're doing escrows. And Brandon, you know more about that than I do, but I mean, the people who are successful seem to be able to do that, and I applaud them. And I think your job is so much harder than mine, because you guys are prospecting new people all the time. At least I have my territory and I make friends, and I, you know, I have my own, you know, my group of people who I see all the time. You know,
Right.
you guys are prospecting new people all the time and keeping your old list going.
Right.
Um, you know, and so I think people who I see are successful, you know, are positive people who, you know, and who are really consistent and working. I mean, obviously in this kind of a role, I mean, you can work 24 hours a day and never get it all done,
Right.
but you need to have some kind of a balance too. And that with everyone, you know, everybody has their own, you know, they got families, young kids, you
Right.
know, older kids, but you know, there has to be some kind of a balance. And the people who I see doing that and still working, you know, a regular 8 or 10 or whatever 12-hour day. Yikes, I hate to say, but
Right.
those are the people who are successful.
That was perfect. And you segued perfectly into what I wanted to wrap this up with here. So, like I mentioned, I found, can you see this okay on the screen? 15
Yes.
point plan.
Well, I
Okay.
was hoping to see this. This is great.
Yeah, and we'll share this with anybody that wants it sent over to him. So the gentleman's name is Ben Kinney. He's before this, his team was doing 600 transactions a year. He owns multiple Keller Williams brokerages, um, has his own tech company as well that works with real estate with internet lead conversion. The guy's pretty phenomenal, and he came from nothing. Came from very, very humble beginnings. Didn't know where his next house was going to be, slept in tents as a kid, and believes as a fundamental right that everybody deserves shelter, deserves a home, right? That it should be that way. So that's part of what drives this. I can't even say up and coming. The guy's already doing some phenomenal things out in Seattle, out in Washington. And again, his name's Ben Kinney. If you hear any podcasts, anything, he actually is the very first person interviewed. See, that's why I'm honored to have you as being the first person that I interviewed by Inman News. I'm trying to remember the guy who runs the podcast, but the very first podcast that they just put out a few days ago was Ben Kinney, and he talked some about the changes of what has had to take place from where the last video that I literally was listening to him at the end of the year. He was explaining how he built his team and how he did roughly 20, 24 transactions a year, and was able to do pretty decent with that. But he's like, I'm an okay agent. But once he understood the value of building a team, of investing in people, he knew was capable of so much more. So it's all leadership. It's developing other leaders, building them, growing as a leader himself. And as he grew as a leader, he was able to help more people out. And now, I mean, he built this machine, and this hits, so the adjustments that he needs to make. So basically, he came up with these 15 points, 15-point plan to break out of a rut in 30 days, right? And I'll just read them off here. Exercise daily, don't drink calories, don't sleep too much or too little. A big one for me that I need to be better about. And what he tries to do is every single day, he tries to hit as many of these 15 items. And he teaches this to his team, right? And look what he's got on his little pyramid down at the bottom corner. Think, time, who, and then the money is on top, right? But it starts with what we're thinking on a daily basis. What are our routines? What are our rituals that we start every single day to ensure our success? How are we winning every day? What is a successful day, right? It's actually going to be one of the questions I was going to ask you. What is a successful day in your life, right? So then he puts never skip meals, never allow negativity around you, journal, pray, say what you're grateful for, review written goals daily, laugh daily, personal growth, do a hobby daily, focus on others, protect and limit alone time. Don't work more than 50 hours a week, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's critical that we have something, and then I'll scroll down. Here's this little chart right here that he keeps track of how many days he's winning, how many of these 15 points that he's trying to hit. And I'll be more than happy to share this with anybody. I thought it was awesome. Inman News thought it was awesome as well. They actually shared it as one of their articles. So just something I kind of wanted to leave off with. Anything that you wanted to add to that list?
No, I love that, and I definitely want a copy. So thank
Definitely.
you.
Yeah.
I think that's great. Absolutely. And I think, I wouldn't add anything to that. I couldn't. I mean, I think that covers pretty much everything. Wow.
Pretty much does. And review written goals daily on a whiteboard or a vision board. You'll achieve much more in your life if you do. And I have to say, and it was one of the very first practices my parents taught me. They had their board up, right, with all their different transactions and prospects and their little checks, of, okay, we got our NHD done. We got our home warranty. We got, our home inspection. We got all these things. And then you can look at the board and see not only what you had going just at any given moment, but what was missing, what needed to be done, and organize your
Right.
workflow. So you're not stressing every single day thinking, okay, how am I going to handle more than 2 transactions at one time? But more importantly, where I've found, and this is really what added to where I'm grateful that I am working from home right now, is once I put that board up, I saw literally in less than a month, the business just start taking off because I was staying focused on who needed my help the most right now. And I'm grateful to have a good sized network of people who trust me and who will call me and refer me business. Um, but even with that, we drop the ball. They fall through the cracks. And it's not anything of just being too busy or not caring for others. It's just the many distractions we get throughout the day between family, and family, I don't like to say is a distraction, but just so many different things that will take you off your focus that you really have to be disciplined. You really have to have a clear vision. You got to know truly who it is that needs your help. And you need that constant reminder, because I don't care how many calendars, how many apps and technology you use. For
Yeah.
me, seeing that whiteboard and keeping the goals out in front of me keeps me on my game, keeps me moving forward, and then getting more to just these daily goals. It's what's for the next 30 days, what's the next 60, 90 days, what does the next year, the 5 year, the 10-year plan look like? And
Yes.
let's dig even deeper. What is my purpose, right? As we all take time here to work from home, what is it? What activities do I see that give myself purpose? And let's do more of that. And
Yeah.
let's be even clearer. What am I put on this earth to do? Who am I here to impact? Or am I here to impact anybody, right? What
Right.
brings me that true peace and that true joy? And so I know what areas I need to work on and who I need to impact. And that is my goal with this. So I hope I've enjoyed this time with you. I hope others have enjoyed it. I know we didn't have the opportunity to do the Facebook Live, and I had a decent amount of people looking forward to that. So we will still share this on Facebook. Hopefully we'll have better luck next Wednesday. We're going to do this every Wednesday. Tamara, you're phenomenal. Thank you for your time. And if there's anybody else that you think of that you think would be great for this show, I know you mentioned the name, yesterday, and you can put me in touch with them. I would love to interview them as well. And I hope they do half as good of a job as you've done today. So thank you so much, Tamara.
Wow. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And again, I was very honored. And keep up the good work. You're amazing. Thank you.
Too sweet. Thank you, Tamara. Stay safe and healthy. Thank you
Thank-
all for your time, for spending it with us here. I hope you took some value from this. If you want any of the links, let's share it. And we're more than happy to get you this information. And Tamara, if you're comfortable, I'd be more than happy to pass your pamphlet out and your contact information. We'll do it, through email so we know who we're sending it to. But yeah,
Absolutely.
hopefully this is the first of many successful interviews for the minimum next 10 weeks. We're going to do this every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. So please tune in, please share it, and I hope to see this thing grow. The way that our relationship has grown over the last 16 years, Tamara.
I love it. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
All right, have a blessed day. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you.